Joined the was part of the finance committee, and that's how I found my way here. I'm a lifer as far as Gresham goes. I grew up and went to Centennial, but spent all my time on the Gresham side of that fence. Let's see, I got a wife, 2 kids that are in the Gresham Barlow School District. I'm on the Gresham Barlow Budget Committee as well. And let's see, where else? I work in healthcare finance. And so I'm kind of in a space where we're trying to navigate where sort of basic civic needs fit along with kind of the economics of the equation. And so that's where I thought I could lend some expertise to this committee. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Scott Lewis. I also live in the Cully Creek neighborhood. I've been a Gresham resident for over 21 years now. I have 42 years of experience in public safety as a fire employee. And now that I'm retired, I now have the opportunity to be on the citizen side of it. You don't really get that opportunity to be a citizen committee member when you're a city employee. So I think I have a lot of experience to bring to the conversation, and happy to have the opportunity to serve.
Hello, I'm Mark Garber, and I've been involved in Gresham since about 1986 when I was first editor of the Gresham Outlook, and then more recently publisher of the Gresham Outlook, and then president of the Pamphlet Media Group until it ceased to exist about a year ago. It got sold to somebody else, I should say. It didn't cease to exist. So I just recently retired about a year ago from journalism, and I've been involved in the community in a number of ways, serving on like the Chamber Board and the East Metro Economic Alliance, Mount Hood Community College Foundation. But actually, I talked to our mayor and said that now that I'm retired, I wanted to get involved a little bit more. So he immediately recruited me for this. I have to admit, I was a reluctant yes on this particular measure. So I have a vested interest in making sure that the tax dollars that I reluctantly said yes to are spent the way that they were intended. So I'm happy to meet all of you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Shirkey. I've been in Gresham for about 12 years. I grew up in Eastern Washington State, and then I've lived all over the United States. I've been in California, in Michigan, in Vermont, but retired from IT. I was with a company called EDS that got bought out by HP, so I technically retired from HP. And I decided after I took my early retirement to head west, so back to my parents and siblings still live out here. So I'm a member of the Finance Committee. I'm actually the chairman of the Finance Committee. I volunteer with a whole host of other things. I've been on the board of directors of a credit union for 30 years. I am chairman of the audit committee on that endeavor. I volunteer at St. Henry's. I volunteer at Mount Hood Hospital, a whole host of things. So being engaged in the financial side of things and involved in the finance committee, it was a natural fit to be part of this committee.
Travis Stovall, Mayor of Gresham. Just quickly, I'm here primarily to convince Mark that his reluctance to vote for the levy was a positive. So that's the primary reason why I'm here. But I've actually lived in the Gresham area now for 24 years. Started off just on the other side of the Portland Gresham line and then moved here a number of years ago. So I've been here quite some time. I was a windsurfer and snow skier when I first moved to Oregon. That's what landed me here on the east side, because you're 50 minutes from either world-class windsurfing or okay skiing. Because I'm from Kansas originally, and you go to Colorado and maybe Utah to go skiing out there, and the snow's just a little bit nicer, I gotta say. Just a little bit nicer out there in those areas. I'll just wrap up by saying that I actually worked on four public safety levies for the city of Gresham. 3 did not pass and 1 finally did pass. So I was jubilant that we were able to actually bring these resources to our city to ensure that we can adequately fund our police and fire. I say adequately because we're still not where our sister cities are across the country. And so this is adequate, not a fully funded solution. And I will say, this is one statistic that I always love to share with our community members, just so that we can have context. Just so we can have context. Our general fund is what we fund police, fire, and parks. Our general fund, if we were to take that and distribute it per capita across all of our community members, our general fund now with the public safety levy in place and the police, fire, and parks fee, we average about $900 per person all across Gresham. City of Troutdale is at $1,400 per person. City of Sandy is at $1,400 per person in the general fund. City of Hillsborough is roughly $1,200 per person. So prior to the public safety levy, we were at $750 per person that we receive to our general fund and we expend out of our general fund. Elizabeth over there saying, I wonder how accurate that is. He is a mayor, by the way, a mayor, not the mayor. He is a mayor. She knows how mayors roll. We work with fuzzy numbers, but I did a lot of calculations. It's probably not perfect, but ultimately that gives you a general idea of the struggle that we face here in the city of Gresham. We are one of the most efficient full service cities in the entire state of Oregon. One of the most efficient full service cities in the entire state of Oregon. And one part, we're proud that we're able to deliver all the services that we do at the price that we do it. And in other senses, it's a challenge every single year. And so with this effort, we want to make sure that we do, as Mark referenced, get it right, make sure we're expending the dollars as intended. And so I just want to say thank you all for being willing to serve in this capacity. We're only meeting once a week for 4 hours every single week. So it's not that big of a commitment. So we appreciate that effort and the commitment you've made for the next 12 years. Larry, back to you before I get myself in real trouble.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you that are in the room and watching, we're just grateful that everybody's here and participating. For folks in the room on the committee, you'll see before you is a packet full of items. I'm going to do some housekeeping items, walking through a few of these slides to kind of walk through typical procedures as it relates to our committees, expectations, and the rest. If this will work for me here. I would note this is the only committee that Gresham has that is in person. It's not wanting to work. Let's go. Here we go. So the expectations for this committee for the meetings is to be respectful, actively listen, open-minded, objective, time management, constructive, and strive for consensus. We'll get into it in a little bit later, but this committee has the real impact to not only be the voice of the community as it relates to these key concerns and challenges, but also as we look towards the future of investing in Gresham. So the time that we have here, the connectivity that we have, as well as the conversations can really make or break the work that we do overall. As it relates to participation, we're going to ask everybody speak, one at a time, no interruptions, refrain from side conversations, come prepared as we'll provide you the information to make informed decisions and hopefully get you the information that you're asking for and contribute to the ultimate goals of where we're moving. Another thing that I would note is the subcommittee and the expectations as it relates to that. So in your packets, you'll find a few items as it relates to the public safety subcommittee expectations, guidelines for general advisory bodies, as well as city law for volunteers. Now, I would note that half of this committee is folks of the community and that are not on a committee of any kind, and the other half are already on the finance committee. So for some that have already done that, obviously you're aware of it. As it relates to roles laid out, there's a council liaison. In this case, it is the mayor. So he'll be, the sounding board to council from council. Obviously, you guys are able to communicate and convey anything you have to city council, but the mayor will really serve in this capacity as somebody who'll be at the meetings, participating and engaging to ensure that we get that feedback and that kind of cross-pollination of information. I will serve as the primary staff liaison, although we have Tristan on our team as well as Chris Fick that may at times be here as well. Additionally, we have some amazing staff in our budget and finance team, communications, And obviously our police chiefs and our finance folks that are here to help serve you to ensure that you get the information that you need to be able to make, informed decisions and ultimately get that communication out to the greater community as a whole.
Can they say their names?
Yeah.
I'm Elizabeth McCann, I'm the Director of Budget and Finance. I'm Robin Francis Parker, I work with communication. Sarah Richardson, and I work. I'm Kristen Anderson, and I work in the Office of Government.
I'm Ian Peterson, I'm with the City Plan. I am currently the capital chief of police. My name is Bill Haggard and I'm the analyst for the fire department.
So yeah, great dynamic team across the board. And we have a community member as well, Allison Hunting. And I think we have a couple that are here virtually as well participating. Eventually, later this evening, this committee will also be tasked with electing a chair and vice chair. And the expectation around that are as follows. The chair will provide overall leadership to the subcommittee for the subcommittee. They'll manage the meeting as well. Ensure agenda is followed, facilitate the discussion, mediate disagreements as they arise, announce decisions. Here's a big item in the responsibility, represent the subcommittee during council presentation. So we'll get to it later in this conversation, but one key objective is going to be the voice to the community as well as to council as it relates to findings and thoughts of this committee. So that'll be a big task here in the fall that we'll undertake. Assist in selection of orientation for new members and ensure subcommittee decisions are carried out. And then the vice chair will, like you see in the presidency, vice presidency, serve out the duties as the chair is not present or unavailable. And I think we can get into the meat and bones of it. So obviously the police and fire levy, which was the first levy passed in Gresham's modern history, last 30 years, brings us to the conversation today. And consistent with that, passed in May of 2024, Measure 26-247, which was a 5-year operating levy to hire and retain additional firefighters and police officers. Codified a couple of months back was the ordinance at 1853, which amend the Gresham Revised Code to establish the Public Safety Levy Advisory Subcommittee under the Finance Committee. So that's why there's half of this body is made up of Finance Committee members, and the remaining are just members of the public that are not currently serving on the committee as well. And so this was important, I think, for council to make sure it's reflected there. Obviously, this committee's role and scope is defined as it relates to a subcommittee of the Finance Committee. But again, in the tier system that we have, the voice of the public at large is incredibly important. And your voice here is obviously very important to the work that we're trying to do and execute. Let's get into the commitment that the levy, called out and the commitments that this is supposed to do. So the commitment that were made were retain and hire firefighters and police officers, which was key and critical to the budget structure last year. It was designed to increase neighborhoods patrols, enhance fire and police protection and responsiveness, and lastly, to establish an independent taxpayer committee that will ensure oversight, accountability, and annual audits. Levy revenue will be placed in a dedicated and protected account overseen by a 7-member committee, which is each and every one of you. And consistent with that commitment, the city has tried to have a public facing, outwardly transparent way of communicating both on the levy website that, by the way, has not been changed or altered from what we said last year. And this group will also, I think, be tasked with ensuring that the messaging and the conversations that are happening throughout the community, we're getting that feedback kind of in a tangible manner that the mayor can take to council and the rest. The last item that I have before I pass it off to budget and police and fire to give updates is we'll be sending out a link to this committee to have you all walk through and look through the non-published updated levy website, which shows the new YouTube page that is quite expansive, kind of profiling the new hires that have been brought forward, some updates that have happened, basically all the things that have happened in the last 12 months that maybe the average public person that's working and raising a family hasn't been attuned to, and make sure that it reflects the values and perhaps the spirit of what the community would like to see. And this group uniquely is qualified, I think, give some critical feedback that we can incorporate with the great team that Robin and Sarah are part of as a part of the storytelling component. So with that, I will pause, come up for air. If there's any questions from each of you before I hand it off to Budget and Finance Director. Nothing. Okay. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
All right, my favorite thing, a microphone. I'm Elizabeth McCann. I am the Budget and Finance Director for the city. And so today we thought we would walk you through a little bit of the work that has been happening on the finance side since the levy passed just about a year ago. So it did pass in May of 24. And what that did is establish the new local option levy for the city. And that tax year began July of 2024. That also happens to coincide with our fiscal year and our new budget. And so that is when the budget for this program started. But with the way property taxes work in Oregon, the city did not actually receive any tax revenue from the new levy until November of 2024. So we had almost a 6-month wait from the passage of the levy until we actually saw any property tax dollars from that. And so as we continue through the rest of the year, we will continue with that first year's levy. And then in July of 2025, we will start with the second year of the levy. And so year one was a little bit different than the following years will look like. And so starting with this July and for the remaining life of the levy, our new fiscal year and tax year will start each July. And then as this correlates with the rest of the budget processes, we typically start our budget development process each fall. So around September or October, we'll start budget development for the following year. Also in working with the property tax cycle, we get updates from the county every year with property tax data. And so we update our forecast around the end of October, the beginning of November each year. And that gives us a better idea of what we will get in that current year, but also what we will get in future years. And in a moment, we'll kind of show you how that process works. November, once again, we'll start to receive the property taxes for the year. We don't get all of it at once, but we get a good chunk of it. And then it will kind of come in over the remainder of the fiscal year. We do in our forecasting allow for everybody here pays property tax bills. So you know that there's an opportunity for a discount. If you pay it all in November, you can have a 3% discount. If you pay it in smaller installments, there's a smaller discount. And we also do account for delinquencies. There are individuals that can't or don't pay their property taxes on the outline schedule. And so we account for that in our forecasting to make sure that we don't come up short. We've committed to pay somebody. We don't want to have the property tax dollars not come in and be able to honor that paycheck. So we do have an assumption in there to make sure that we're not over budgeting. And then as we will move through this process, the other thing that I have outlined on here is our external audit each year. We do have an external auditor, as is required for all public agencies, and they audit our books after the close of every year. And so in this case, it would have closed, they'll close in June, and then by December, they will have completed their work and issued their opinion about the quality and accuracy of our financial statements. And they do that by December 31st of every year. And then that report is issued to our finance committee and goes to mayor and council as well. And we will be sharing the results of that with this committee as we get it. So just wanted you to kind of understand our financial timeline each year and how the levy, our budgeting process, as well as our auditing process all fold in together. So I talked a little bit about the forecasting that we do. We do have a robust revenue and expense forecasting program, which is why Ian's here tonight. He's responsible for this work. So as we were looking at a levy for the city of Gresham, we did an initial forecast based on the tax rate that the mayor and council were looking at what type or what amount of revenue that could generate over a 5-year levy. And we did that work as we went through the levy process. We were expecting that to generate about just over $12 million for the first year of a levy. When we got the new property tax dollars last fall, great news is came in a little bit higher, so not under, which is always a good thing, but we don't want to be so conservative that we're missing the mark in a significant way on the upside also. So we were within 2%, which is really good, but it gives us a little bit of wiggle room going forward if our forecasting is maybe off a little bit in a future year on the revenue side or on the expense side. But as we've shown here, the light blue bar was the original forecast over the 5 years. The dark blue bar is our current forecast of where we think each of the 5 years will come, or the revenue will come in. As I mentioned before, this does include an assumption for discounts and delinquencies, as well as compression. I know all the finance committee members have heard the compression lecture before. It is an element of our property tax system, and it has to do with the limits placed on the property tax measures. So if we ever need a lesson here about that, I'm happy to come talk about our property tax system as well, and how the levy plays into that. So that is what I have for this evening.
Any questions? Could we do a deep dive into compression right now? I'd love to talk about that at length.
I can go get my laptop and pull up the slides.
Great, yeah.
I'm sure we could keep everyone till midnight.
I'm just kidding. No, we don't want to do the deep dive into compression. At least not right now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, I think next up we have Chief, who will give kind of just overview as it relates to how the levy impacted his work and the work that's being done ongoing.
Okay, good evening again, everybody. I'm Derek Menard, I'm the fire chief for those that are online. So tonight, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what the levy is being used for in the fire department itself. Next month, you all get the pleasure of spending an hour with me to have a fire department overview and the team as well, and to get a tour of Station 71. And we're going to take a deep dive into what our budget, our staffing, how we do things, what that looks like. So tonight, I just want to touch on the levy piece of it. So when we look at the levy and what it has done for us, when Gresham Fire took a look at what the needs were, Rescue 72 was another apparatus that was identified. And when we look at our response data for our fire management areas, FMAs, we look at how busy we are, we look at data, we look at response times. There's a lot that goes into that we'll get into in more detail. And I want to give you a little bit of context. Our Station 71, which is across the street here, last year in 2024, ran 3,900 calls in their what's called FMA. So in there, we have our engine company, we have our truck company, and a battalion chief for 3,900 calls. District 72, or FMA 72, which is an engine company by itself, had 3,700 calls in their FMA. So a need was identified to add another apparatus to assist with that call volume and to look at taking our what's called low acuity calls, which are not the most critical, but it's light, it's nimble, it's a pickup truck or an ambulance that can respond quicker to taking an engine or a truck out on those medical calls. So that's how we landed on Rescue 72. Chief Lewis this was his baby back then, and I've been able to take that over since. So when we look at this, to staff Rescue 72, we decided we needed to hire 9 new firefighters to staff the unit. We hired 7 lateral entry firefighter paramedics. So when we look at these apparatus, we'll make sure that what's called ALS, Advanced Life Support. So we need to add more paramedics to our staff. That fire academy started in January of 2025. So they have graduated, they're online, and they're running calls currently. At the current time, we have now what's called the entry-level firefighter academy, where we have hired 12 people. 2 of those are levy-funded positions, and the others are filling attrition, vacancies, that type of thing. But 2 are for the levy. So at the end of this, we're going to have 9 new firefighters, and Rescue 72 will be staffed full-time 24/7, July 6th, 2025. So it's coming up. In January of this year, we did put Rescue 72 in service if we had staff available to staff it that were on shift, if we had extra bodies, or if we had people that were willing to work overtime. So we sent out, I'll use the term volunteer requests for overtime. And if people stepped up to work it, then they would ride 72, would put it in service, typically in 12-hour periods, depending on staffing. But again, July 6th of this year, it will be 24/7. 2 other positions that we identified that were in need were the deputy fire marshal positions. So in our fire, we call it life safety, community risk reduction, fire marshal's office, all used interchangeably. We have added 2 deputy fire marshals through the levy, and we have hired those personnel and they are working. So what we've been able to do is, as you see on the slide, we've been able to start back up our school inspection program. So our fire inspectors are in the schools and they're doing inspections, and they've made a lot of ground since the hiring at the first of the year. We are, with the addition of the second person, we'll be able to have more community engagement and education. So that's really an enhancement. For example, a couple weekends now, our fire marshal team, the fire marshal office, has been in homes installing fire detectors, smoke detectors in homes. And so they're getting out, community outreach has increased, and that's going. So we were already recognizing the work of the levy, what it's been able to provide to the community of Gresham. With this process, when we hire people, it's a long process to get people through an interview process, backgrounds, physicals, and those type. We do a psychological test. So it takes about 6 months to get somebody hired. So it's a long process. So that's what we've been doing since we've had the funds. And so in the fall and winter of 24, we were having that hiring process. In 24 and 25, we're able to institute the academies to get these people through that were part of the levy. And our fire academy, the current one with the entry level, graduates July 3rd. So then that's when all the levy hiring will be complete. So that is the overview of the levy hiring. And again, next month we'll get into all the details of the fire department. But any questions of the group? They are. Okay, so the question was, are any of these employees limited term employees? Meaning that at the end of the levy, they would term out. They are FTEs, so they are full-time employees. Yeah, you're welcome.
There was a really specific language. I'm just curious, how is that measured in terms of the arbitration? City firefighter.
So in addition to the 11 positions that we have here?
I was going back to that language and that's what products.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine. You want to repeat the question, but we'll have those.
Okay. So the question was, what is the legal obligation when we have attrition to ensure that the employees that we hire are for the levy? Okay. Okay.
Thank you for the question. So here we have 9 firefighters listed, and you referenced 13 that was in the levy. There were also 4 firefighters that we had that had limited funding through ARPA. And so those 4 fires firefighters were transferred from ARPA funding to levy funding as a permanent funding source for them. And so that's where the 13 came from. Those are actually firefighters. There were also, in addition to the new positions, there were preserved positions that were included in the levy, and all of those were transferred to levy funding in July as well. And we'll have more information as we continue these subcommittee meetings. We'll actually have data and information for you upcoming about exactly how many people have been moved to the levy fund or hired into the levy fund and how much we have spent so far, but we didn't bring that information tonight. Yes, fire regularly holds fire academies to address the attrition problem and to bring new staff in as people retire or depart for other jurisdictions.
Elizabeth, I would also reference the budget concept, because I think what Mark's referencing is, ultimately, if we've got attrition throughout the year, throughout the process, how do we budget for the levy funding? How do we budget for the total of what we've actually identified in the levy?
So we do a budget for the total number of employees that were scheduled to be paid for by the levy. If there are vacancies during the course of the year, all of these funds are set aside in a separate fund from the general fund, so they cannot be commingled. And so if those funds are not spent in one year, they are carried forward into future years to be spent serving those same functions that were covered or described by the levy. So the funds will never be shifted to another purpose. They will be used to maintain those same programs into the future.
It happens every time. Okay, Travis. And okay, and there is no other Travis in the room tonight, so we're doing good. Again, Travis Goldberg, Chief of Police for the City of Gresham. I've been with the City of Gresham just over a little over 3.5 years, working on 4 years. Good to see you, Chief Lewis. I think you're going to hear a lot of consistent themes tonight. And I think one of them I'd just like to start off with, I'm very grateful and thankful to the community for passing the safety levy, because I think there was a lot of concern about our ability to provide public safety throughout our entire community, both police and fire. And as we heard through the consistent messaging through that was, we just don't have enough people to serve you and serve you in the best way possible. So when we set out what we call our safety levy roadmap for the police department, we took into account not only what we were hearing in terms of feedback from our community, but also the information we had received over, I would say, more than 1 year, probably more than 5 years, about any assessments or professional assessments we had externally from consulting groups to talk about what is needed in the Gresham and what is needed to keep the community safe. And I think the mayor spoke about this, that historically our numbers for public safety and police in particular for me have been low. Oftentimes I want to get the numbers right. The mayor does a better job than me, but I think historically, if we've been at 1.4 officers per thousand, that's probably doing good. I can tell you we do not operate at 1.4 when you throw in any kind of number of issues that might happen where an employee is not available operationally, whether that's workers' comps issues or et cetera. So we're probably less than 1 officer per thousand. And where it really hit home for me was when we were communicating our messaging to our community about the safety levy, and retired Chief Lewis shared, that you could probably go to the local McDonald's and there are more staff at the local McDonald's serving lunch to the community than there are police officers in the community right now trying to keep the community protected. We typically average anywhere from 7 to 8 officers per shift, depending on the day of the week and the the hours of So again, we're here to just give a high level overview, quick information about how we approached our roadmap. What the safety levy did more than anything is sustain current level services. And in addition, added 9 police officers over 5 years. I do not believe we get officers in that 5th year. I think all of the bulk of our hiring will be done or increased numbers over the four years. And then additional 23 professional support staff over that same time period. Important to recognize that our professional support staff do a lot of amazing work that police officers can't do. One of those that, I'll highlight now, but also talk about in a moment on my second slide. I'm going to outdo the chief too. I got 2 slides. That our community safety specialist program that we've brought on board. That has been a very successful program. We have 5 of the positions filled. We had 6, but somebody did not work out. And we look forward to bringing another person on to do that work. They handle the low level crime reporting and opportunity for the community to get quick responsiveness from us so that we can meet their needs when our officers are tied up on higher priority calls. And it's worked out wonderfully and made bigger access or more access to our community. And then additionally to point out, just we get at least 2 additional new FTE officers over the first 3 years. It's actually 3 in the first year and then 2 the subsequent years. And then in the 4th year, we add leadership positions. That one is a sergeant position, that's a field supervisory position, and then a management lieutenant positions. And these are critical positions within our system to make sure we're doing the right thing and serving our community well. And then, again, as I alluded to, all this was done, our roadmap development most recently through, if you were with us in 2022, we did the Barry Dunn Associate, came in and did a full operational assessment of us. And so we used that and the other professional assessments we've had over the years to really build an appropriate roadmap to determine what is needed. Officers obviously a priority, but where within our system in terms of professional support staff that we need additional help to do the job right. The levy does allow flexibility based on current needs. And what I really mean by that is I have an opportunity to work with the city manager and the council to say, hey, we didn't see this coming at the time we built the levy roadmap. And maybe what's more important than an admin 2 position is something that we need more immediate now. One of those I'd highlight is we took one of our admin 2 positions that might have helped with arranging court times or putting payroll numbers in to a what we call a branding marketing specialist, but really to do work of recruiting, because you probably have heard that we've had challenges throughout the last couple of years on getting people and getting the right people to come to Gresham to work. What we've seen out of doing that work is a 500% increase in leads of people that are interested to coming to serve in Gresham. And then just finally wrapping up, the additional professional support staff that's added over those years include, again, highlighting the community safety specialists. We've got additional records management staff, including frontline records positions, additional crime scene investigators, administrative support that help out throughout all of our functions. And then a focus on recruiting and hiring and training. And then I'm happy to report we're also bringing on a community engagement or outreach position to help us better connect with the community. So, some of the things I just highlight real quick is a little over a year. I think I have a little bit different numbers than communications teams, but I think it's more than a year. We've hired 26 new personnel, 14 of those of officers, and 6 are already on patrol, which we call solo status, but meaning they can go out without any field training officer or any other requirements, that they are truly solo and responding to calls for service. And currently, we probably have more than this now because it's a little bit dated, but 45 candidates that are being processed, and a majority of them are in background process, which is really the final process of the hiring. So we have already seen significant success just in this first year of the levy and are well planned throughout the future. So thank you. And we'll meet again. And I think I get July, I get to go after the chief. So where we share more about what we do and how we're serving. Well, that's a great question. And so the question is with the understaffing or underfunded, what have we been doing about emergency management or disaster preparedness? And I will tell you, and you know, the mayor could probably share, we have a person that's leaving that position that was wonderful. But I do believe now that the fire chief will be taking over that position. But Kelly Londovato did a lot of work and got the city in the right place, I think, but somebody else would probably share more about that than me. But we did have an actual emergency management professional position, and then we're transitioning over to the fire chief.
Is there a collaboration?
Yeah, so the question, I think you're still asking the same contextual question, but do we collaborate with other cities? We do. We participate in regional groups as well. So we connect with Portland, we connect with Multnomah County, and then our three cities, I guess 4 cities with Maywood as well. So to partner on those on disaster preparedness, emergency management.
Last question.
Yeah.
Why is there a fire academy and not a police academy?
Well, there is so the question is why is there a fire academy and not a police academy? That's a great question. I don't know why legislatively or decision at the state level that they do not have a state academy for fire. So at the local level, they have to do their own academy, and they do a great job of doing that. We, fortunately, police have a state academy that everybody has to go to. And so the entire state of Oregon sends any police agency, send their police officers, candidates to the academy, and they attend it. It's about a 16, 17-week academy, depending on holidays and stuff. And they go through that system. So it does put an onus on the fire department to come up with a lot more probably curriculum and material and resources and staffing to put on. We get the benefit, although I think it's pretty costly to have the support of the state doing our academies. But good question. Thank you.
So this is my opportunity to kind of ground this subcommittee in the expectations I think Larry already gave. Some insights on some expectations, but this is really trying to ensure that this subcommittee understands kind of what our charge is, what your charge is. I'm actually only a liaison, and what the council kind of expects. First and foremost, I do want to say, as we ground the subcommittee, this subcommittee is really about the oversight of the levy, not of the police or fire department. So we're not talking about operations. We're not talking about, how do we improve operations? That's not our task here. Our task is really to ensure that what we have said that we're going to do as the city with the levy dollars, that's what we're executing on. So I just want to be clear that you do hear sometimes advisory, oversight, those types of language in regards to kind of what's going on in other cities and municipalities, whereas there's an operational oversight. That's not the charge of what we have here. It really is to ensure that what we have put forth in the levy, we will be able to move forward with and hold the city accountable to those commitments. So that's what we're working on here as our subcommittee. Furthermore, I think I want to share with you one of the things that I consistently hear across the country as I meet with other mayors, and it's consistent that we have a lot of information as cities. We have a lot of information, and a lot of that information needs to go from the city to our community members. And and many times there's a bit of a disconnect in that communication channel. And I will tell you right now that our staff here at the city of Gresham is second to none. We have incredible, team members as we look to move forward all the efforts that we do. Many times folks are reaching out to the city of Gresham, kid you not, checking in with our staff, everything from finance to law enforcement to fire, checking in on the homeless services, on the things that we're doing. There's actually a person that we have on our team that works in stormwater that is one of the most foremost experts on stormwater in the state that works here at the city of Gresham. And so that's the type of folks that we have here working hard every single day. That does not mean, though, that we do everything perfectly. And what I mean by that is I think one of the charges that the council would like from this committee, the subcommittee, is to ensure that, and now we're down to 4 years. So every 5 years, you have to renew the levy. And the question earlier, I think Cindy, that was your question about whether or not they were limited term. So yeah, there's limited term if we don't get the levy passed, redone. So we've got to work on making sure that we can communicate. I talked to hundreds and hundreds of community members as we moved forward with this last levy. And numerous times they didn't understand some of the most basic facts. And when I was able to share those facts, then they were able to say, oh, now I get it. Similar to the fact that I shared earlier, where our spending per capita on our general fund is substantially less than our sister cities. Beaverton, Hillsborough, even when you go down to Medford, I won't go into that one, but ultimately we are operating with lower resources, but still delivering great outcomes. So with all that said, as we're working through and looking at all this information and data, we want to make sure that we are looking at new and innovative ways to communicate this information to our community members in ways that they can consume and understand. Now, granted, will everybody consume and understand it? Well, probably not. But it's just that increase and enhancement of this information. And so ask tough questions. If you don't understand something, please let us know what those questions are so that we can find better ways to communicate, find better ways to display the information. Because again, as you all know, we suffer from the curse of knowledge many times because we see this information all the time. We don't recall not having the information. So it's the curse of knowledge. And so I'm an accounting and finance guy. I don't remember the days that I learned debits and credits. It's also natural to me now. And I've got to make sure that as I'm trying to explain it somehow, I'm explaining it differently than the way I understand it. And so I really want to impress upon this incredible team of folks to be able to, as we're going through this process, ask those tough questions, ensure that we can deliver ways of communicating this information that are innovative, that folks can understand, and not just the information itself, but the venues and the vehicles that we can distribute this information in innovative ways so that in 4 years, we're able to communicate this in ways that folks understand, they get, and they can appreciate what Mark didn't appreciate at the beginning of this process, where he was reluctant. And in 4 years, I want him to exuberantly, check mark the box and say, no, we want to renew this because it's incredible what we've been accomplishing. And so how do we do that? And so again, you've got the first charge of holding the city accountable, and that includes the mayor and council, making sure we execute on what we said we were going to execute on. But then also, as we look at this information, as we begin to dissect what we're reading, what we're consuming, how do we take that in incredible, innovative ways and deliver that to our community so that we get more engagement? And it's something that I started off with. Almost every mayor I talk to across the country, we all complain about the same thing. Our community members just aren't consuming this information as much as they could and should. And so as we work through this, we've got a great communications team. Sarah's a part of it. And they can come up and they can support us in some of these efforts and looking at some new and innovative ways to communicate this information. So just wanted to kind of ground us and level set from the council's perspective. And certainly we'll answer any questions if you have them. No question.
Their funding in place to come up with these innovative new ways to get this information out to the community. Or we just work with the communications team and whatever type of medium they're using?
Well, we have funding for these processes currently. And so it may be a redirection of, some of the things that we've done in the past, maybe doing it a little bit differently, maybe leveraging, sometimes it's not even, requiring funding all the time. I mean, maybe we can, maybe it's leveraging technology in new and different ways, and having, the council or somebody doing Facebook Lives or things like that. I mean, so it's, I think there are funding mechanisms that we already have in place that we currently use, that we could redirect and pivot. That's the city manager's call at the end of the day. But then there's also ways that we can, I think, leverage technology, new technologies that we probably haven't done historically.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, I know that we have a couple of minutes left. I want to be mindful of people's evening plans, but I think you heard it suggested and talked throughout in regards to the calendar. So I want to kind of walk through the subcommittee. I have it on the screen here for folks that are watching virtually. We have a tentative plan of a June and July focus of police and fire. And then take a break for the month of August and move into September or October for that council meeting update, which would be the chair and vice chair formally presenting to council. Into November, that may be an opportunity again for that additional communication. There's also, I think, an expectation as well that there be some correspondence from this committee to the general public overall about their findings, opportunities, and the rest. And then as we move into the new year, post audit, we'll have the findings per what Elizabeth said into December and January. This group will then be able to reconvene and look at next steps overall. As we go into March of next year, the subcommittee can then review the audit, prepare to give the updates to council. And then into April, that will be the opportunity to report on the use of funds to the community, the city council, and the rest. Currently, this is the only committee that the city of Gresham does that's a citizen committee that meets in person. That's ultimately up to this committee if you guys would decide to change or alter that. If you like meeting in person, we can do that as well. So that's the tentative kind of staff proposed cadence of kind of synergy for calendar. Perhaps not meeting obviously every month, though there are some key information we want to get to you and to make decisions moving forward as it relates to police and fire and give a kind of a holistic overview overall. So does this calendar look ominous or good or scary or reasonable? Okay, perfect. There are two other items over 7 o'clock. There's 2 items that we must do. We must elect a chair and a vice chair that would then be presiding over the meeting, not myself. And then we also need to take public comment, which I believe that there is one individual that's online that signed up for public comment within the timeline. So with that, I'll entertain a motion, nominations from the floor for chair or vice chair.
I'd like to nominate.
Okay, I see one nomination.
If it needs to be seconded, I'll second it.
We can, if there's consensus or if there's no other nominations for chair, then I think it would be great to first and second that as well. But I think I can do math. So yes, a seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so we have a chair. And I'll also accept nominations for a vice chair.
Nominate like Schultz for. I'll second it.
First, second, I don't see any other nominations, at least not all at once. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we have Chair Coleman Cox and we have Vice Chair, how to pronounce that? I want to make sure I say it right. Schultz. Perfect. Okay, so I guess your first task as chair would be to open public comment. I believe that Carol Rula will be the last voice that we have tonight for public comment.
So hello, Carol. Thank you for joining. Hello, Carol. Thank you for joining, and we are open to your questions. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Carol Rula, and for those of you who don't know me, I've been involved with the city's neighborhood association program for almost 20 years, and I've served on some committees like this, but mostly I've attended a lot of meetings and given a lot of public comment. I'm really glad to hear the emphasis on figuring out how to share this information with the community. That's really great. I would encourage, as just the basic level, to be sure that any information that is given to the subcommittee before the meeting is online at least a week before the meeting. And I would encourage that there be regular announcements of this committee's meeting and the information you've gotten, because it's that regular information that people hear, especially you as a taxpayer group that is doing oversight. You are a trusted voice. And so even though the council is also residents of the city and everything, you as being more, like the regular citizen, not as involved, will be a trusted voice. And so I would encourage that your questions be recorded, that they put, on the website, that you figure out, with staff, a dashboard or something. I'm really excited about hearing what happens next. At a very basic level, please put public comment at the beginning of your meeting. If anybody's going to come to talk to you, it's really hard to have to wait till the end of the meeting. Anything I say now isn't something that you could discuss in the meeting. So what's really good is to have an opportunity for public comment at both ends, especially since this is a trusted group of citizens that really wants community input. Having public comment at the beginning as well as the end of the meeting. And if possible, not have a 24-hour deadline for making comments. If people show up to your meeting and want to make comments, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of people, but it's really good to hear them. And that's a shame that something that's happened since the pandemic. The great part is having Zoom and being able to attend virtually. But it is much harder on people to have to register to give comments. So consider that, please. And I look forward to hearing the discussion as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I actually was at a school board meeting and I couldn't give a comment because I didn't meet that criteria ahead of time. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, one last comment and then that's your meeting. I did pose the question that this is the only committee currently that meets in person of a subcommittee or regular committee. That was, I think, a choice at least to start, and ultimately it's up to this committee what works best. So that's one thing that could be deliberated, and then if there's any parting questions or comments, but it's your meeting.
So all in favor of in-person meetings? All right.
I would say particularly with the tour parts.
Yes.
I mean, I would say as we roll along, especially in those dark days of February, if it makes sense, I'd like to have the option.
Yeah, we'll have an option for inclement weather.
It is nice to see people face to face. As I commented to Mike, we've been on the finance committee for I don't know how long, and Nick actually ran into you at a restaurant. So, but it's nice to actually see human beings face to face.
Yes. Are there any other comments or questions?
Do we have dates for these meetings yet?
Great question. We do not, out of respect to this committee, we want to just assign a random day during the week, except for the first. So ultimately, we can send around a doodle poll if that's easier, or if there's a thought on a day of the week. Obviously, we as staff would hope that it would not be in conflict with city council or planning or other committees. But ultimately, if there are certain days or times that work better for this body, that ultimately is the consideration.
Is everyone familiar with doodle polls? Okay. And we have everyone's email. Okay. So I'll get that out this week.
I would advocate not unlike other committees that we have, what you call a regular third Thursday or whatever, second Tuesday, whatever it is that we come up with, that it be consistent so we can plan. I mean, for example, the finance committee meets on the third Wednesday. So I can put that in I know what's planned. So just as a suggestion, I mean, doodle polls are wonderful to get us started, but I think it'd be good to establish a regular cadence so that we don't run into the conflict with the council and the finance committee and whatever other committees the city would be having at that time.
Is there anyone right now that there is like a drop dead no time that you can be available?
The finance committee was
Third Wednesday. Yeah.
Third Wednesday.
Okay.
Council meetings first and third Tuesdays.
Chair, I think we could provide perhaps some recommended days of a cadence that may make sense that are not in conflict and then
Okay.
react from that perspective.
That sounds great. Okay, is there anything else? Well, I will move to close.
Is it be a second? I'll second it. Thank you.